Thank you for joining us today at Miniature Wargaming Labs. Today we'll be going over how to get your Hobgrot Slittaz from the Dominion box set tabletop ready, get them battle ready. You can see I have finished painting them all up here, and I store them in sandwich containers because you can shake them around and they'll be fine, as long as you don't drop them. Alright, so while I painted this guy, I painted the rest of his brethren in there. But this will be the guy we'll be doing for the example video. And the colors I used, I primed him standard Mechanicus gray. Then used out of the Citadel line, Mephiston Red and Ionrach skin. I also used the washes Agrax Earthshade and Nuln Oil. Then out of the Army Painter line, I used Weapon Bronze, Greedy Gold, Gunmetal, Shining Silver, Matte Black, Ash Gray, and Necromancer Cloak. I also used some Stirland Mud to texture the base, and at one point I will use Vallejo German Camouflage Beige World War II. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Now I've primed my guy standard Mechanicus gray. And the first color I'm going to start with is Ionrach skin. And I am basically going to put this on the skin, surprisingly. Just one thin coat. You don't have to worry about being neat. This is just our first layer. Now we got the Ionrach skin is dry and on there. So I'm going to take some Kobold skin. You know, you don't have to do the Ionrach, actually. If you're willing to do a couple of coats of Kobold skin, you probably just get a similar amount of coverage, but I find it hurries the process up not to do it over the gray. I'm not too worried about neatness at this point, because we'll tidy up later. We'll go ahead, get this guy covered. Now I'm going to take some Stirland Mud and texture up the base while we wait for the Kobold skin to dry. I just take my little tool and layer it on. I just swirl little patterns into it. Now I'm going to paint the base, and for that I'm going to use Necromancer Cloak. I've already poured some in my palette. And I'm just going to slop this on here. Now I'm going to take some leather brown and I'm going to paint the various roots and leather that make up the clothing there. You see a lot of them have these little armbands too. So at this point we want to I'm using a smaller tip brush because I want to very carefully cut along the line. I don't want to have to keep going back and forth, tidying up between dark and light colors. Now I'm going to apply the red, and I'm going to use Mephiston Red just because it is my favorite. And I'm get my little tool here and pull some out, mix that up on my palette, get the right consistency so it just flows on. But what we're going to do here is very carefully with the red target all these little ropes. You don't have to use Mephiston Red. If you're sticking with the Army Painter line, let's see, Pure Red or Dragon's Red probably be just fine. I mean, actually, I'd probably, on different figures, go back and forth between the two, just to show that the Army got their little ropes at different times from different dye lots. Can't see that. See, these little ropes normally go all the way around. I normally just put on one thick coat. Now I'm going to move to some Army Painter gun metal. Poured some out in my palette. I'm going to get the little cap. Oh, I forgot a little red. I'm going to have to take care of that. Missed that one. There's another rope back here. God, these things are surrounded by those little decorative ropes. Alright, I gotta go back and touch that up once I'm done here. So we've got the little bomb, the little grenade thingy from the Chaos Drawers. And so I'll do the knives. Now I'm going to use some Army Painter Matte Black. And we're going to do the armor plates. Be careful just to cut in. These plates are jagged. Don't want to touch onto the skin. At this point, we'll probably go, once we're done with the black, we can touch up with the Kobold wherever we've missed. Now I'm going to put on some weapon bronze on the piece of currency. So, looking in the background, this isn't actually a plate, this is a piece of currency. Since they're go and trade with the Chaos Dwarves, I guess. They take all the loot and go trade it for their particular orc group. So they're actually wealthy, so they wear the currency as armor. There we go. I'm going to start putting on some of the washes here. So I'm going to start with the Nuln Oil. And let's get this thing open. I just have to jam that open. Alright, now we are going to take up a brush I've beaten up before. That's the wrong one. Something bigger. Take a brush I've beaten up before, wet it a little bit. We're going to apply the Nuln Oil to the Necromancer Cloak. I like how this looks on my bases. The Necromancer Cloak isn't perfectly black, but you can get a nice look to it. There we go. See, the Nuln Oil will sink to the bottom, turning it to black, and the raised parts will lose that purplish hue. There we go. Since we've put on the Nuln Oil, you can take this chance, put on some Agrax Earthshade. I'm going to take a brush, beat up, it's just a little bit bigger since I'm covering more area, and I'm going to just push it into this model. I like what it does to the Kobold skin. And it'll dampen down everything. Don't put it on too thick, sometimes it'll pocket and pool in areas and just completely obliterate the color underneath. Now all the washes have dried, and honestly at this point you could probably stop right here and be just fine. But we'll go push it a little bit farther. So what I'm going to do is take some Vallejo German Camouflage Beige World War II. Any type of darker taupe color would work well. I'm going to take a, wait, that's the wrong brush. Let's grab this one. I'm going to take a dry brush and going to get some paint on it. Off camera, I'm wiping a lot of the paint off. And I'm just going to hit the flesh parts. Some of the brown. If I hit the other parts, I'm not too concerned. Next, we're going to take some shining silver. I've already put some in my palette. And we don't need much. And we're just going to run along the edges of the blades here. And just touch some of the edges of the bomb here. And then what I like to do is run along just randomly. Got some paint and brown. Use my brush to wipe that back up. Okay. Now, back to the metal. I just like to show that the paint's kind of chipping off. So I'll just lightly touch the edge there. Yeah, that's some of these little bolts. Now we're going to take some greedy gold, using just a little bit. Just going to punch up the little coin that he's wearing. Go very subtle. Now we're ready to start on the base. We can use some ash gray. And this is a little tiny brush. I cut most of the bristles off, made it into a dry brush of sorts. So get a lot of paint on, a lot of paint off. And just run it across the top of the grit randomly. And then just flavor to taste. And once we have this base done, we'll be done. So while I was painting this, I actually painted all the Hobgrot Slittaz at once. And it's just a quick battle-ready paint job. There you go. Looks pretty good. Well, thank you for joining us at Miniature Wargaming Labs. And we'll see you next time.